welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet, the daughter.
And I'm Kevin, the dad.
And this week, I felt like doing another comedy album. So, we will be discussing Steve Martin's Let's Get Small. So, Dad, what do we need to know?
Well, first we need to know that Steve Martin has led an active life producing a massive body of work. So I'm not going to be able to hit on everything. So if I've left out something you liked, well then that's too easy. Anyway, Stephen Glenn Martin was born on August 14th, 1945 in Waco, Texas.
Of course his middle name is Glenn.
Yes. And would you care to comment on that?
No, it just fits. It just fits the vibe.
Okay, he has an older sister, Melinda. All right. The family first moved to Inglewood, California, and then Garden Grove in Orange County. Steve was a cheerleader at Garden Grove High School, and he makes reference to this in the bit on his A Wild and Crazy Guy album.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
He worked for Disneyland, first selling guidebooks on weekends, then full-time during summers.
That I knew. Is that why they had him do Fantasia 2000? Is like a little throwback of sorts?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
Plus, he's also Steve Martin.
Yes.
He mastered some magic tricks and got a paying job at the Fantasyland Magic Shop. He'd perfect his juggling, magic, and making balloon animals whilst working there. After high school, Steve went to Santa Ana College, taking classes in drama and English poetry. He joined a comedy troupe at Knott's Berry Farm, and he met budding actress Stormy Shirk. They worked on comedy routines, became romantically involved, and she influenced Steve to apply to California State University, Long Beach, to major in philosophy. At one point, he considered becoming a professor. However, in 1967, he transferred to UCLA and switched his major to theater. Whilst attending college, Steve appeared on The Dating Game and won a date with Deanna Martin, yes, Dean's daughter.
Aw, that's nice.
Also in 1967, a former girlfriend, Nina Goldblatt, a dancer on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, helped Steve get a writing job by submitting his work to head writer Mason Williams. Williams initially paid Steve out of his own pocket.
Wow.
In 1969, Steve, along with the other writers of the show, won an Emmy for outstanding writing for a variety series. And I think that's also the one where Tommy picked up his 40 years later.
Yeah, because he wasn't recognized. And Rob Reiner was one of those writers too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He also made his first national TV appearance on the Smothers Brothers.
Yep.
And he also wrote for the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour and the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. He was also opening up for such groups as the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, the Carpenters, and Toto.
Him and the Carpenters and Toto. Those are interesting combinations. Yeah.
In the mid-'70s, Steve was also doing stand-up on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, The Muppet Show, HBO's On Location, and, of course, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Whenever he was on, viewership jumped up by 1 million.
Wow.
So far, he's been on the show 26 times, guest hosting 16 of those times.
Huh.
He's still number 2 behind Alec Baldwin 17 times.
Oh, okay.
On SNL, Steve popularized the air quotes gesture.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Okay.
Yep. I checked on that, and it showed up in a few different websites. Also, in the 70s, he put out comedy albums. His first, Let's Get Small, came out in 1977 and went to number 10 on Billboard's 200 Albums charts.
Nice.
It also won Grammy for Best Comedy Album.
Well, yeah, no brainer.
1978's Not As Good follow-up, A Wild and Crazy Guy, hit number 2 on Billboard and also won Best Comedy Album Grammy. It also spawned a top 20 hit, King Tut. The return to form, Comedy Is Not Pretty, came out in 1979. Also in 1979, his book, Cruel Shoes, was released.
Is that any good, or have you read any of his books?
I've read Cruel Shoes, and from what I can remember, some of it was good, some of it was head-scratching. The only other book of his I've read is Born Standing Up.
I've heard of that one, too. Is that any good?
I highly recommend that
Okay.
one. Let's see. His final comedy album, which I haven't yet heard, was The Steve Martin Brothers, came out in 1981. Half the album was comedy, and half the album was him playing the banjo.
Is there a reason you haven't listened to it?
I just haven't gotten around to it, and I think it's also out of print, but I think Mike might have a copy of it, so if he does, I'll have to see if I can borrow it from him.
It's also probably on YouTube, too. Somebody probably uploaded it.
He also stopped doing stand-up in 1981. He didn't make an announcement. He just stopped. But I did read somewhere online that he said the the stand-up was just like his gateway to making movies.
He did go on tour though again with Martin Short recently.
Yeah, I was going to say he did come back to it in 2016, touring with Martin Short, and they did come here to PPAC maybe last year, but I've also seen the special on Netflix, and it's pretty good.
Okay.
In 2009, he started putting out music albums, bluegrass specifically, as he is an accomplished banjo player. He plays the banjo.
And he's very good.
Anyway, he's put out 6 albums so far, either with the Steep Canyon Rangers or Edie Brickell. All 6 have hit #1 on Billboard's Bluegrass chart.
And he and Edie Brickell wrote, Star something together. I forget the name of the musical.
Bright Star.
Bright
We'll
Star.
get to that. Don't worry.
Thank God.
You're welcome. Then Hollywood called. In 1977, Steve wrote and starred in a short called The Absent-Minded Waiter, which also starred Buck Henry and Terry Garr. And I was able to watch it online.
Aww.
It got an Oscar nom for Best Short Film Live Action. And if you get a chance, you should watch it. It's hilarious.
I miss Terry Garr, though.
His first feature film appearance was as Dr. Maxwell Edison in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oh, they dragged him into that too?
And he sang Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which I have not heard, and I kind of don't intend listening to.
I think he could be zany enough to pull it off.
He could, but I don't want to.
That's okay.
I don't want to.
No one's forcing you to.
Thank you. In 1979, Steve starred in The Jerk, written by Steve, Michael Elias, and Carl Gottlieb. Carl Reiner directed, and he'd also direct Steve in Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, The Man with Two Brains, which is dumb but hysterical, and All of Me. As for The Jerk, it cost $4 million to make, and it made back $100 million.
And Bernadette Peters is in that movie too.
She is.
People have described that as my stepfather's favorite movie, which, from what I know about The Jerk, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Okay. Also in 1979, he made an appearance in the Muppet movie.
Yes.
As a waiter. And he was also in the Who documentary, The Kids Are All Right. He narrated part of that.
Oh, cool.
He's made close to 60 films. His most well-known ones are probably Three Amigos, hence the Martin Short connection.
Father of the Bride?
Yeah, I got that in there. Little Shop of Horrors, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, of course. Roxanne, Father of the Bride, Cheaper by the Dozen. And why, Steve? Why the Pink Panther?
Yeah, that was stupid.
Steve's also written plays, his first being 1993's Picasso at the Lapin Agile. He wrote a musical with Edie Brickell, Bright Star. It got 5 Tony noms and won a Grammy for Best Theater Album.
Yeah, that exists. And the music in Bright Star is really good. I heard Zach sing it live at CCRI a couple years ago. It's very nice.
Okay, I mentioned his Cruel Shoes book earlier. He's written more since then, including a children's alphabet book illustrated by New Yorker cartoonist Ross Chast.
Aww.
And again, I highly recommend reading his autobiography, Born Standing Up. He goes into a lot about like his relationships with his parents, especially his father. It was a little strained.
One thing I will say about theater credits really quickly, he and Robin Williams also did Waiting for Godot together, and you can find clips of it on YouTube.
That must have been interesting.
Yes.
As for his personal life, he's been married twice, and in 2012, at the age of 67,
became a dad
for the first time. So now he's 80 years old with a 13-year-old daughter running around the house. Hang on to your sanity, Steve.
Granddad.
Yeah. He currently stars with Martin Short and Selena Gomez in the Hulu series Only Murders in the Building, which got renewed for a 6th season, and apparently they're going to Europe. As for me, I'm pretty sure my cousin David McDuffie introduced me to Steve via the comedy albums. David was, and I'm assuming still is, a huge fan. He was such a huge fan that his nickname in high school was McMartin.
Oh my God.
Yep. I remembered a lot of the routines from the first 3 albums, but didn't get around to getting them until the CD age.
Yeah.
A Wild and Crazy Guy is my least favorite. Half of it was recorded at the boarding house, which is fine. That's the place where Let's Get Small was recorded.
Yes.
But the other half was recorded at Red Rocks, so it's a big crowd.
Oh, and it's different. You can hear the shift in tone.
Yeah, because it's like Steve was like at the height of his SNL popularity with the him and Dan Aykroyd as the Wild and Crazy Czech brothers.
And King Tut.
Yeah, and so like the people in the audience scream at almost everything Steve says, and it's just really annoying. It's like worst audience ever.
Well, that's probably why he stopped.
Yeah,
Because he couldn't tell
I
jokes.
think that's maybe when he realized it might be time to get out of stand up.
Now is the time to go.
But at least with Comedy is Not Pretty, he went back to the boarding house and it's much improved. As for Let's Get Small, it was recorded at the boarding house in San Francisco in 1977.
Only $4 to get in.
I know, and 5 to get out. And that and at the risk of repeating myself, it went to number 10 on Billboard and won a Grammy for Best Comedy Album. I'm not sure when Warner Brothers first released it on CD, but they went back and put out a remastered edition as part of their Warner Archives label series, and that's the version that I have. So let's just jump into this.
Opening track, Ramblin' Man, theme from Ramblin' Man. Steve Martin moves at such a lightning fast pace, I don't even know where to begin with him. We hear the opening act, and he starts playing the banjo, which you have to expect from him because that's part of his act. He's always played the banjo, and he can really pick at it. For further proof of that, look at the musical he co-wrote, Bright Star. It's very weird and involves throwing a baby off a train. Anyway, I think my favorite thing about him so far as a comedian is just what he's able to do manipulating his voice. It's not so much the joke itself that gets me to laugh, but his delivery of it. From spelling the word ramblin' with an apostrophe instead of G, trying to get the audience to sing along and then calling them out when they don't, and of course, the very beginning where he says tongue-in-cheekly as he plays the banjo, "Man, this guy is good."
Yep. So yeah, right off the bat, Steve starts playing the banjo and singing about how he's a rambling guy. And yeah, he does try to get the audience to sing along without much success.
That's part of it.
And he accuses them of being uptight. And then my favorite thing is like he cues one half of the room, then the other, then this fifth, then the 2/7 and the 5/7 of the room, and it just keeps getting in the smallest fractions. And yeah, my favorite line is when he spells out rambling, apostrophe, rambling guy. It's hilarious. But the one thing I could never figure out is why it's not titled Rambling Guy, theme from Rambling Guy, because he never utters the phrase Rambling Man. Never, not once.
I don't know. Maybe that's part of the draw. Not sure.
And maybe, well, because the Allman Brothers had the song Ramblin' Man, and maybe people thought, oh, wow, he's going to do that song. Nope.
Next track, Vegas. This was the first Steve Martin track I ever listened to intentionally before this episode because one of my favorite songs is Perry Como's rendition of It's Impossible, and hearing Steve Martin deliver the line, "It's impossible to put a Cadillac in your nose, it's just impossible," just makes me laugh every single time with his delivery. Mom thinks it's cheapening the song, and I can understand her argument because Perry Como's original song is very sentimental, saying how you would do anything unconditionally for the one you love. But for me, it's a parody, so I don't mind it at all. It was also interesting listening to this track after the night before watching Martin Scorsese's Casino for the very first time. Before we get into the track, though, there's one anecdote I'm going to share from my senior year of college. I took a theater seminar course where performers would come and speak with us. They would tell us about their experiences as a full-time performing actor and try to impart as much wisdom and common knowledge that we needed to know before we graduated. There was one performer who came in who previously did a lot of musicals in Las Vegas. I knew about this phenomenon because Phantom did their Las Vegas Spectacular around 2006 and it ran for years and years and years. So I asked him, what's the difference between doing a musical in a Las Vegas setting versus doing 8 shows a week on Broadway? I knew there was some slight differences, such as cutting down the show's runtime and also doing 10 o'clock shows after everyone had gotten dinner. So if there were tech problems and things went wrong, you were doing that show till midnight. Now, the actor was very clear. Performing musicals in Las Vegas was not his favorite thing to do at all, because the people who are there watching you are not there to watch a musical. They're here to gamble their money, drink, and have a good time, and they're just really looking for something to do as they digest their food and drink. So they're not necessarily the best audience members. And I've also heard from musical theater performers who do shows out in Vegas that the dry heat of the desert really messed with their voice a lot. Back to this. Steve talks about how Vegas was worth it at the time, being the price of $15 to get in because of the amount of tits you see on that stage.
And the thing is, it's like, I bet there's 57. Like, you don't get an even number. You get an odd number.
But he also talks about how the opening act is usually a pop singer of some sort. This hasn't really changed, and I've always wondered if a person has a Las Vegas residency, Is it a badge of honor or is it a badge of shame? Because you have Adele and Britney Spears doing Las Vegas residencies, but I remember Idina Menzel saying in an interview that she doesn't want to be a Broadway singer with a Vegas residency singing in a smoky room, which, sorry Idina, but considering how your voice is going, and this is just my personal opinion, you might be in that smoky room a lot quicker than you think. And of course, there was Elvis Presley with his Las Vegas residency, in which a lot of people said he became a sad figure. Steve's pop singer doesn't really sound sad so much as hokey. He's good at making fun of the sort of thank you very much, great to be here, where are you from, which he does at lightning speed. And what makes it funny is juxtaposing that with singing these pop standard ballads. The side of Vegas I definitely never got to see, especially because when I went I was 6 years old and it was a family trip. Steve says Vegas is not like here, his show is very highbrow, and then he proceeds to tell the only bisexual joke I find genuinely funny. A couple comes back and asks him, hey, are you bi? And he's going, oh, I thought they meant bilingual. I said, yes, of course I'm bi, and I won't regurgitate the whole joke, but let me assure you it's very funny. And it's also interesting to hear bisexuality talked about in 1970, whenever the hell this was. I don't think people were as open with the terminology back then, but considering David Bowie and Freddie Mercury, maybe it entered the popular lexicon sooner than I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Steve talks about how his show was only $4. Like, you got $4, I think of in the street.
Oh, $4, I could just come in here.
But in Vegas, it's $15 to get into a show, which, you know, in 2025 money, I'm sure that's a minimum of 3 figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about how that entertainer is going as fast as possible because he has only so much time to fit in everything, like the singing and the dancing and the joke telling. And, yeah. And then he proceeds to be that fast entertainer, and it's an amazing performance, and it definitely deserved to be recorded for posterity. My favorite line, Sammy Davis Jr., personal friend of mine.
I wish I could see his dancing because you can hear him really hoofing it on the stage.
Yeah.
Next track, Let's Get Small. Definitely had to Google what the title of this one meant because let's get small isn't a phrase that's used anymore when people say let's get high or let's get stoned. Okay, this track is 15 minutes long and it bounces around from topic to topic. What I will say is some of the jokes land better with me than others. This is also because you can tell that this is the track where Steve Martin is doing a lot of visual stuff on stage and you miss out on the joke. Also, I was looking forward to the Richard Nixon joke because I thought Steve would just tear into him, but there's a visual element that I miss and I feel deflated for having not seen it. Funnier ones for me are when Steve is talking about how in order to really throw off a mugger, you have to act crazy, which is something Carol Burnett did when she first lived in New York. Some guy grabbed her arm and said, okay, honey, let's go. At which point, she writes this in her memoir, she proceeded to cross her eyes, do her best Margaret Hamilton Wicked Witch of the West laugh, and started singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, and the guy took off like a mile away. There's also some jokes that would definitely blow up over Twitter if it existed back in the day for all the wrong reasons. Maybe this track should have been divided into some more miniature tracks, kind of the way that Brian Regan does on his album, because it feels like a 15-minute long tangent, which is fine, but I think the track should have a name to reflect what we're getting. What would those names have been? I really don't know.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely the longest track on here. It's 15 and a half minutes long. And it starts off with, you know, if you paid $4 to see Steve, sometimes he does $4.75 show. So, hey, you know, making a return on your investment. He then talks about his love of money and the stuff that he's bought with it, such as a fur sink. And then he talks about how he's on drugs, like, you know, he likes to get small instead of getting high. And it's very dangerous for kids because they get really small. And then he tells about how a cop pulled him over and asked him if he was small and said that they have a special test to figure out if you're small. Then he talks about how it wasn't easy for him to make his way up as he was born a poor black child. And this was used in the opening scenes of The Jerk, where his character, Navin, has a birthday with his family, and he finds out he's not their natural child. He was left on their doorstep, and the line he gives is, "You mean I'm going to stay this color?" And then he starts crying.
Oh, man.
And then his next section is like, he says he doesn't like to gear his material to the audience, but he found out there's a convention of plumbers in town, and some of them might be in the audience. So he tells a plumber joke.
Have any plumbers ever commented on it, saying if it's truly funny or not?
I don't know. I like to think he did his homework, and it probably is. And then he sings a song about the boarding house, how it's only $4 every 5 minutes. And then he does his bit about Native American folk music, and he tries to share it with the audience, and he gives it that pop feel. And then he talks about how he doesn't do dirty material, and then he launches into something that hasn't aged well.
Yeah, we're not going to say it on the internet.
But it was 1977. That was 48 years ago, and I'm sure, I'd like to think Steve's evolved a lot since then,
I think
as
so too.
humans in general have.
Next track. Oops, sorry.
I'm still not done. Sorry, it's a long track, and
Yeah, it's fair.
and the funniest thing is like how much this has aged. Like he talks about how naive he was during his drug days, and he talks about how he would never smoke marijuana in California because you'd get a ticket for that. And I think, well, nowadays you just go down to the corner store.
Yeah, not a problem now.
And then he plays more banjo and talks about how it's a happy sound. You just cannot get depressed when someone's playing the banjo.
Yeah.
And he thinks the banjo was the one thing that could have saved Nixon. Because, again, this was 1977.
Laugh-In could elect Nixon, but it couldn't save Nixon.
He also says when people are out of work, instead of giving them money, just give them a banjo. And then, again, since it's 77, he talks about how he thinks Carter should have had a banjo, which, might have saved him. And then he gives the good advice on, how not to get robbed. Just,
Act crazy.
Which I'll try to remember if that ever happens. And like you, I think this track could have been broken into smaller sections because the Let's Get Small part is only a few minutes. It's really not even the first part of this whole schmear. But the next 7 tracks, they range anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 minutes. So they do get broken down by topic.
Next track, smoking. Steve does a whole bit about smoking. He's not anti-smoking, he just thinks that there should be a place for it. He doesn't mind it in the nightclub, but when it's in a restaurant, that's when he does start to mind. And this is when we get my favorite quote on the whole track and maybe the whole album. Guy walks up to Steve in a restaurant and asks, "Hey, mind if I smoke?" To which Steve replies, "No, mind if I fart?" Which will always show bathroom humor, will always be funny. And then Steve takes the adage about smokers and smoking and applies them to farts, at which point the whole audience just loses it. I don't know if he's ever going to top that one line, ever, but that's just me.
Yep. That pretty much is everything that I said. But again, this was like back in 1977 when you could smoke in restaurants.
Could you still smoke on airplanes?
And you could smoke on airplanes.
Okay.
You could just smoke everywhere. But in the mid-'70s, some restaurants were starting to have smoking and non-smoking sections.
Which I think makes sense because you're sitting down to eat. You don't want to taste cigarette smoke in your food.
Yeah, and then eventually it was just like, no smoking in restaurants. And that was like, when I first moved out and I would go to the laundromat before Joan and Joel owned it.
Oh, yeah.
There was this guy who would come in, do his laundry and smoke while I was doing my laundry, and I would take my clothes home and they all smelled like smoke. So I thought, I'll go on a different day when he's not there. And I'd have the clothes in the washer. I'm like, yeah, excellent. And then he'd show up, light the cigarettes. I'm like, does this guy just know I'm going to be here?
That's a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode.
Oh, that is.
So then when Joan and Joel came in, the smoking...
They just, that was the first thing, no smoking. And I thanked them like right away,
Hi, Ben, if you're listening.
Now I think the only place you can still smoke indoors is casinos, because if they banned that, they just wouldn't have anyone pissing away their money.
Well, when we went to Bally's for the chocolate convention, granted we were only in there for a couple of minutes, and it did have, the casino smell, but we didn't see any active smokers at that time.
I think there was like one time I went maybe to see Uncle Joey's band at one time. This is like a long time ago. And you look up and you would just see
the haze
of smoke, rising to the ceiling.
Judge used to see that a lot when he would volunteer at the church to do bingo nights for the old ladies.
Oh, I bet.
That's the haze. Anyway.
But anyway, Steve moves on to tell how he's not a tactful person. Then he tells us his doctor said that Steve has to actually take up smoking because he's not getting enough tar.
Next track. One Way to Leave Your Lover. Is this title sort of a play on 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Simon and Garfunkel? Or
just Paul Simon?
Just Paul Simon. What came out first?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
It might have been around, I think Paul Simon's came out first.
Okay. I can't really spoil the punchline for this one, but Steve's girlfriend broke up with him, and, well, let's say it's not exactly a typical way, and it involves drunk driving, but I swear it's funny. However, this was the sketch where I got a little irritated with the audience because they're laughing at every line Steve says. And I'm like, it's not the punchline yet. You got to build up to it.
Well, I think it's just the way he comes across.
Okay.
Like, he's like, oh, I'm depressed. He's thinking about his old girlfriend. He's like, eh. And the audience is just like, they're just waiting. They know something's going to go on. And he talks about how they will get together for 3 years. And she'd travel with him. And sometimes she'd be in the audience and he could hear her laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gives it the old, she's not living anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he blames himself for her death because one night they went to a party. They weren't getting along and she had too much to drink. She asks him to take her home. He refuses. She asks him again, please take me home. He didn't want to. And I will leave it at that because I do not want to ruin this.
Next track, Mad at My Mother. Steve is mad at his 102-year-old mother for having the nerve to ask her son if she could have $10. At first, I was worried the joke was going to fall flat because his first punishment for her didn't make me laugh, but then the second one saying, and if she still doesn't, I'll make her carry my barbells up the stairs, did make me laugh. I wonder what Steve's real mother thought of this. And I'm also going to use this to impart some wisdom I got from Instagram of all places, but it's still true. Your parents both equally loved you and screwed you up, and unfortunately, it's on you to fix yourself.
I'd like to think I've passed that on.
What, the screwed up part? Or the what? What part?
Both parts? I don't know. The latter part, not the screwing up part, but I probably did.
You and Mom passed on both. It's all parents do it. It's inescapable. But I don't blame you guys anymore. I worked it out in therapy. Yay!
Oh, good for you, Jules. Anyway, since you will never be a parent someday,
Nope.
It's really, you're making it up as you go along and you're doing the best you can.
Cycle ends with me.
And you kind of like lean back on, well, what did my parents do? Okay, I'm going to do that. I'll try not to do that. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, where are we? Mad at my mother. She's 102 years old, and the first person I thought of was Vavor, who made it to 102.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And she called him up the other day to borrow $10 for some food. And then she says she can't pay him back. She says, well, what is this bullshit? And I like how he says, so I had one of my secretaries bring it over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I won't get back into the how she's going to pay it off.
Mm-hmm. Next track, Excuse Me. Yes.
Oh, that's original.
This is where Steve's iconic catchphrase originated. Steve pretends to be a prima donna when he can't get the blue spotlight he wants. And my favorite part is during his rant, you can hear an audience member in the back yell out, yeah! This is definitely one where the laughs build as Steve's manic energy builds. So it starts out with maybe a couple of titters, unless you get the Shakey's Pizza reference with the banjo, because we don't have Shakey's Pizza out here.
No, that used to be a thing a long time ago.
Oh, okay. But again, the more unhinged he gets, the more laughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he starts off playing Ain't She Sweet, but keeps singing the words to Way Down Upon the Swanee River, trying to make them fit to the medley. He does it a couple of times and just doesn't work. And then he asks for some mood lighting from the backstage crew. Nothing happens. He asks again. Nothing still happens. And then he just goes off on the crew about how he's trying to do a show, and he's giving, and he's giving, and he gives some more. And he can't get help from the backstage crew, and I think everyone knows what he says next.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while in this 1970s, there was just no escaping that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
But I like how it ends. Like, he has his outburst, and then he gives it, I'm sorry.
Next track, Grandmother's Song. Steve sings the audience a song his grandmother taught him when he was young. At first, it starts out with sincere life advice, and then, of course, said life advice gets more absurd. What makes it touching, though, is when Steve asks the audience to sing along, even with the absurd lyrics. I like to think he learned a thing or two from the Smothers Brothers when they would ask the audience to participate in Michael Row the Boat Ashore or Where is the Love?
It's here.
Try singing like that. And as Steve says, hey, you guys are going to be on a record, which ended up being true. But I won't give away the little punchline at the end.
Yeah, he talks about how close he was to his grandmother, and she used to sing him a song that always meant something to him. And he sings it to the audience and then has them sing along. And it starts off grandmotherly. Then, of course, it just goes off the rails. Mm-hmm. And this track was released as a single. It didn't hit the top 40, but I do remember hearing it on the radio a few times around these hair parts.
Because it's got the most singing in it, I think.
Yeah.
Next track, Funny Comic Gags. Steve does some more miscellaneous jokes, including bathing his cat, which the punchline shouldn't really be too much of a surprise there because anybody who's ever tried to bathe a cat will know how awful an experience it is. There's also how to make other people laugh at a party or to throw them off, and going skiing. There's no real thread to any of these, obviously, but I think I prefer the tracks where it's dedicated to one topic than when he kind of freestyles the whole thing. It reminded me of Let's Get Small, where it's like could have been broken up into different sections. But I think this title, Funny Comic Gags, is more all-encompassing than the other one.
Yeah, well, I mean, he gets to the point where he shares some practical jokes with the crowd that they can play on their friends. Like one involves an atom bomb, another one involves showing up late to a party, which he did his last one 6 years ago, and then the ski lift one. But yeah, that one about giving his cat a bath, that one always gets me. And he says you're not supposed to, but his cat was really dirty, and I wondered, do cats get dirty?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the ones I know are like indoors, so I'm thinking, how could they possibly get dirty?
Dust mites floating around in the ceiling,
Oh,
dust
yeah,
particles can
I
accumulate.
guess, but that usually self-service anyway.
Final track, closing. Steve says goodbye to the audience. Just wave your hand goodbye. And he's going to say goodbye to every single one of them individually, even if it's his least favorite part of the whole thing. He also imparts them with some wisdom for the Maharishi, and to say that everyone should laugh at least once a day. And it has my favorite joke. Life without laughter is like a day without the sun. Night. I just wanted to spoil that one because it made me laugh. And then he goes away, and the audience claps for a really long time. The end.
Yeah, he actually stands there and thanks every single person for coming to the show. Thank you, and on and on and on. And then, yeah, he does encourage the audience to laugh at least once a day. And then he leaves the audience with words of advice from the Maharishi. Steve studied with the Maharishi for 15 long, boring years. He didn't learn much, but the day Steve left, the Maharishi said something to Steve that he's never forgotten. And you have to listen to find out what that is.
Overall, I'm glad I got to see this side of Steve Martin because my generation never grew up with him doing stand-up. We grew up with him doing movies and with him doing TV shows such as Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, which is really popular. And side note, that show might also be the reason that Meryl Streep divorced her husband so she could be with Martin Short.
What?
Yeah.
What?
That's the theory. It's like they got really close and cuddly during the dating. Yeah, she was married to like the same guy for all these years.
Gummer?
What?
Gummer? That guy, Don Gummer? Whatever his name is?
Yeah, she's been married to him for so many decades, does this show, gets a divorce, and then all of a sudden the paparazzi get photos of her canoodling with Martin Short.
It's going to take quite a while for my eyebrows to lower, but Martin, good for you, my friend.
Good for you, Martin. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah, do some research. It's all on the internet.
Holy moly. Wow.
Yeah.
Truth is always stranger than fiction.
Imagine if your wife is Meryl Streep and she leaves you for Martin Short. The existential crisis.
Yeah, begins now.
Anyway, so I understand why Steve is considered a comedy legend now because just of what he's able to do with his voice and the simple jokes. Now, if I was in need of cheering up, is he the go-to comedian I would listen to? No, because in my heart that title still belongs to Fluffy, aka Gabriel Iglesias. But if it came on in your car, I would totally listen, and I have gone back to listen to some tracks. And I also do think you have to be of a certain age in order to appreciate the jokes, because, Dad, I would hear this play in your car when I was a little kid and a teenager, and not all of them landed. But I think if you're like me, in your mid-20s, post-grad, then this humor hits perfectly.
Yeah, this is a funny and quirky album, and Steve definitely has an unusual sense of humor. And you have to think about some of his gags, which is good. And you brought up something interesting, like you said, your generation just knew him from movies. With me, it's like I was always used to him as being the stand-up guy, and then he started making these movies, and it was, when you're going back to the club, when you're going back to the club, you're not going back to, why aren't you going back to, oh, he's never going back to the club.
Well, it's also the same phenomenon that I kind of experienced growing up, where it's like, I only knew Robert De Niro and Al Pacino from the bad movies they did later in their career. And then I find out, De Niro did the Tribeca Film Festival and all he's done for method acting, and Pacino's earlier roles, and I see that, and I'm like, what? Huh? These are the same two guys? What do you mean? You get what I mean?
Yeah. Because did you see that Adam Sandler movie Al Pacino was in?
Yeah, Jack and Jill, we watched that in Uncle Jim and Auntie Dies.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, Al, did you really need the money that badly?
Yeah, he did. He blew it all.
Really?
That's why he did some of those movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was like divorce settlement or something.
Save your money, kids.
Anyway, if you like this album, I'd recommend Comedy Is Not Pretty next, and then in last place, A Wild and Crazy Guy. But just listen to the material at the boarding house. That was recorded at the boarding house, and listen to King Tut on side 2. You can skip the Red Rock stuff. And side note, back in my Camp Stone Tower days, pre-Jim and Diane, me and the recreation counselor and a couple of volunteers, we actually did King Tut.
Really?
We did the whole song. We had the Egyptian moves going. This is definitely pre-Walk Like an Egyptian, and
Yeah.
I kind of think of that every time I hear that song.
One other thing I will say about Steve, if you really want to see something touching, go on YouTube and look up his tribute to Gilda Radner on SNL and get ready to cry.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing that when it actually happened, and it was just like, oh, man.
On that sad note, all right, thank you for listening to Latest Tom and My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. We're going to give you guys a bit of a heads up. As is our tradition, we're going to be doing a Christmas special for December. And after that, we're taking the rest of the year off, and we'll be back after New Year's. So if you want to see the episodes, I post them on social media. If you're friends with my dad, tell him what you want to listen to, and I'll send an email to your inbox. All right, we'll be back next time with the Christmas special installment of My Dad Listens to This, and then going on a break. Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yes, well, that's our Steve Martin episode. And if you didn't like it, well then, we'll try harder on next episode.